blunt. It's Middays with Gerard Gibbert from the Element Wealth Studios. I'm Scott Sands filling in. It's great to be back on the radio in what I consider my home state of Mississippi. C-Spire text line open as well at 601-879-4395. This morning, it may be happening now. I'm not sure exactly what time it's scheduled to begin. Ukrainian President Zelensky meeting with President Donald Trump in the White House. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is joining me now on Middays with an update. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a retired Department of Defense intelligence operative, now president of Project Sentinel. We have no video, I don't believe, with the Colonel, but he's joining us on audio on SuperTalk.fm. Colonel, it's great to talk with you. I appreciate all your time on my radio show, and good to catch up with you here.
Sure, Scott. Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
So as we look back on the last 3 years of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia, how did President Biden screw this up? It seems like this was something that we should have been able to support our ally in Ukraine and help them to repel. And I think many people, and as you and I have talked about over the last few years, were surprised that Ukraine was able to battle as hard and as successfully as they have. And I don't think anybody expected it to last 3 years.
No, I don't think anybody expected it to go this long, especially since it's essentially World War I style trench warfare where nobody does well and everybody dies. So it's been a bad war from that perspective. Scott, to answer your question, Biden never wanted to win. You don't pick competent generals and throw money at something if you really want to win. Could you imagine if this was World War II and Roosevelt said, yeah, we're just going to give the British a few $100,000, maybe $1 million or $2 million. Good luck with beating the Germans. That we had to be involved, we had to be invested, and we had to have basically people like Eisenhower, like Bradley, other leaders who were willing to fire people to pick a course that would actually result in victory. We didn't do that, and I think it was done purposely. I think the money that was sent over, we're going to come to find, was largely sent off to other areas. That's the second area is Democrat corruption. I don't think the money that we did actually spend went to where it was supposed to be, which is to support Zelensky in Ukraine. So these are all things which are bad. It's past the point of recovery. And at this point, I think President Trump is going to do what Reagan did. Reagan was able to sit in front of the Russians, Gorbachev, and play a game of poker. And we obviously came out on top. I think that's what Trump's going to do now.
So I've got a couple of friends who used to work for President Zelensky in the administration that I communicate with on a regular basis, and they're saying the same thing, that the money is not getting to the troops. It's not getting where it needs to go to win the battle. And the old adage here, I think, is true, that you don't just throw money at a problem. You've got to have a plan and a way out. But we've sunk billions of dollars into defending Ukraine. And many people may disagree with me on this. I think we should. We need to stand up and help Ukraine defend their borders. I think it's a danger to allow Russia into Ukraine, and I don't think they would stop just with that one country. But this whole approach that we've seen for the last 3 years is not a winning strategy.
You and I would disagree on that point. I don't think Russians are out to be the aggressor they were during the Cold War. I think Putin has been trying to put the band back together. That is the old Soviet Republic or Soviet states back into the Republic. But I don't think, Scott, especially by the fact that they didn't go after all of Ukraine. They don't want all of Ukraine. All of Ukraine would be a pain in their butt to rule. I mean, last thing you want is rebel groups doing everything they can to disrupt commerce. What they want to do, and I think that's why President Trump has been successful, is reestablish a path to a commercial and diplomatic framework that allows for trade to happen. Trade and commerce are the languages of peace. And I think, as President Trump has said, it's like, look, we're not going to do military guarantees to Ukraine. We're going to invest by putting U.S. businesses there. And that is a form of security guarantee. If you have U.S. businesses there, the Russians aren't going to attack, because if they attack our businesses, we will respond. So I think that's what Trump is trying to do. And the Russians were guaranteed back in 1994, under the Budapest Accords, that NATO wouldn't move east, and it did. So unless we're able to understand and deal with their grievances, we will not see a resolution. And I think that's what President Trump's trying to do right now is actually win by acknowledging what their issues are, but then doing the Reagan thing by actually doing things which undermine their ability to conduct military operations or war.
We're talking to retired intelligence operative Tony Shaffer. Colonel, what's the end game here? The talks with Zelensky, I hope, are productive today. How do you think this conflict will end?
We own Ukraine. That's what it is. We basically have bought Ukraine,
and that's exactly where I was going with this. Strategically, how important are these mineral rights that President Trump is negotiating for with both Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, hugely important. Right now, the other big adversary, China, has a corner on rare earths. So this is huge, and I think again, Scott, this is good for the region. If we can get together and pull Russia away from China by relieving them, that is, the Russians, of any concern regarding are being an aggressor to them. They are paranoid. People have to understand, Scott. I've said this on your show before. The Russians have been invaded. You can't change the momentum of 1,000 years of paranoia. It's just not going to happen. So accept they're paranoid, manage the paranoia, manage it to our benefit. I think if we can pull them away from the Chinese, that's great. And then the rare earth issue is something that we then can focus on with the EU. Remember, the other people who benefit from this, and despite the fact they don't like it, is the European Union. If we can help get rare earths from Europe in Europe to create a industrial capacity that challenges China, that's what we want. That's where we need to go. So this deal today, I think, puts us in a very positive direction. Whether the Europeans and British like it or not, we're going to drag them into success one way or another.
Do we then need to invest, and I use that term invest loosely, more money, billions of dollars more to rebuild Ukraine? That's kind of been America's habit over the years after all of these major conflicts.
Yeah, to your point, look, Japan is a thriving democracy. Germany, look at Germany. As much as I think there's been some critical issues. The reconciliation of the East and West Germany have made them a powerhouse in Europe. South Korea is another area of success. So, yeah, I think it's inevitable if we are able to go in with commerce, leading with investment, not with military. I think everybody will benefit. And again, Scott, let me be very clear on this because this is what President Trump and his cabinet have said. You don't need U.S. forces on the ground if you've got U.S. investors working to actually develop the region. And I think that's where it's all going to go.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer here on Middays with Gerard Gibbert. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Your X handle, and you and I in the past have talked about this, is T-Spooky. And quickly, we've got about a minute here. The Epstein files, or some of them, were released yesterday. There's a lot of speculation now on social media, a lot of rumors that part of the reason why these files have been withheld for as long as they have. And I know you talked about this, I think, on Newsmax yesterday. Was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence operative? Is that why so much of this information has been redacted? And because phase one was really nothing burger, as they say, and I know you're intimately involved with UAPs, the UFO investigations, as all of these files are released by President Trump, will we actually learn anything this year?
So there's an interesting perspective I think people have to understand that was put out by Elon Musk. Scott, we're dealing with a bureaucracy which has had, speaking of paranoia, we've had a bureaucracy which has had over 70 years to solidify its ability to hide things. That includes the JFK issue, the UFO issue, and of course the Epstein issue. So people, as much as I'm aggressive in wanting, and 9/11, another area we didn't mention. 9/11 is something that I think I know for a fact there's going to be declassification of things, and certain things I know I have to get approval from DOD to talk about, which I think DOD is going to give that approval, which is going to change the very fabric of our understanding of 9/11. I think all these things take time. So you can't get the bureaucracy to give up secrets without getting people in there who are able to get them out. And if they can't get them out, we're going to prosecute people for having destroyed documents. But I think we're going to get a lot of stuff out, but it's going to take about 6 months to get everything out.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, I'm Scott Sands. Middays with Gerard Gibbert from the Element Wealth Studios on SuperTalk, Mississippi. We'll cover some headlines, what's happening around Mississippi next.